and I have few questions. So let's start from our very own Abhishek. So Abhishek, tell me, we know that Dirt Lab is a futuristic, future-centric company and making waves in the design-based education sector and tech research sector. How did you get into architecture? Now, because you were a beatboxer and you wanted your career to be there, what was the thought process that you wanted to be in architecture?
So honestly, yeah. So the way I got into architecture is one of the most simplest reasons possible. I was in my 12th standard or the second PU here in Bangalore, and I was just walking along with my friend one day after tuitions, which you're supposed to attend mandatorily. Every South Indian family pushes you towards that tuitions, right? And this person basically just said, there's no mathematics in architecture, right? So I ended up taking architecture just for the sake of it because I thought I'll always make it big in beatboxing. And that was literally the reason why I took up architecture. And to be really frank, I never really had an interest when I started off in architecture, mainly because FL Wright was my biggest inspiration. On day one of my college, I told my professor, by end of year 3, I'll be out of college. I'll start my own firm and everything. And that changed quickly because the creative satisfaction which I got during my design projects quickly made me fall in love with architecture, right? It turned around in such an amazing way that I couldn't think of anything else. So even when teachers said, if you design such a big space, I will fail you, right? I was like, please go ahead. I just want my creative satisfaction. I was literally there for 5 years just to satisfy my creativity. And whatever I need to do, I had to design, I had to get it out. Because for me, if I'm not doing something creative at the end of the day, my brain literally rots inside. So that was my main reason for getting into architecture. And even with Dirt Lab, the reason why I started Dirt Lab, right? Many people ask, why are you in architecture? You shouldn't be in architecture because you're a beatboxer. That is one view, I totally understand that, but the reason why I'm here is purely for my creative satisfaction. So what architecture has provided me is, I can't even explain that, right? It's like my better half. I really can't live without architecture right now. So Dirt Lab is another byproduct of the things which I missed during that journey. So what I could fulfill to the students in terms of what I can give back to the student community is why I started Dirt Lab, as simple as that. And yeah, at the end of the day, I didn't want mathematics in my studies, but now most of my work goes into geometry and numbers, basically. So it's all parametric design, computational design, and
get that.
we love data. So yeah.
Thank you so very much. I have a question for Ms. Aparna. So as an established architect and interior designer, as well as the research head of Zita Interiors, what inspires you what inspired you to start Zita? One, and also please share your top observations and experiences in the interior design industry.
Hi. First off, thank you to Begin Up and Mr. Anand
It's our
for this
pleasure.
opportunity. So I am a part of Zita, and why I took up research was because first off, research is what I feel is a starting to any project. We should do a complete study of anything before we start on. It doesn't have to be just design. Doesn't have anything that you start of regarding. You have to collect data. You have to collect everything, any kind of information before you start on. And that is something that I'm quite an expert at. Before, I don't know, people who know me, I'm an introvert. So before, if someone asks me something and if someone wants to know something about something particular, I do a complete study before getting on about telling them about anything that they want. So that actually pulled me towards this particular role in Zita. And so what was the other question? Inspiration.
Yeah. What inspired you, to start Zata?
Uh, so inspiration, I would say, comes from anything. The purpose of design is to excite and amaze. So for me, that particular parameter is very essential. Exactly as Abhishek said, if I don't do something creative in a day, it sort of pulls me down, sort of makes me feel like I haven't done anything in my life. So I've always been a creative person, be it in school, be it in during my undergrad or post graduation. The pull towards creating something with purpose, and which is fulfilled by design, has always been an inspiration. Design, as in, has always been an inspiration.
Like, we always need to have something to get inspired with,
Yeah.
so we can start doing something new and
Exactly.
create
Yeah.
more.
It can come from any source. It doesn't have to be anything particularly artsy or beautiful. It can come from any source. That is where inspiration can strike at any time, anywhere. And you should just go with it.
Thank you. And amongst us, we have another panelist. Thank you so very much for joining us. First of all, welcome to you. We have architect Subhashri ma'am with us. The first question I have for you is, what are your thoughts on how design industry will progress and grow in this new decade?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for making me do this. I've never done this. This is the first time. Thanks, Big Up, for creating this event and making all the architects meet up. See, we completely believe in this cycle. The cycle, like what was yesterday's, is going to be today, with a lot of technology and the process, and today's is going to be like tomorrow's again. So it's all the current trend, and I believe in that. And of course, the design is also going to progress that way. What is today is what we have to grab, and change is constant. And we need to live with it, and we have to be smart in grabbing that and keep evolving. That's it, yeah.
Thank you. So I have another question, it's a sub-question, probably I'll ask you later. So we have a beatboxer and architect. How important a role does data play in your design process? Now, because in one of your TED Talks, you had mentioned you are working on a groundbreaking research, like you did it in Udaipur, right? And that's now called as voice texture. So what is that? And could you tell us more about it? And what are your plans? Because you're too young, yeah? And you're young and you have this creativity, you have your own company. So what is it that makes you do this? Also, that you said, it's something that you need to create always.
So what is happening right now as we are sitting, you guys are looking at me, I'm looking at you guys. I'm a strong believer in machine learning. So that's more of a engineering-based concept, but that is essentially what is happening. This award will give you positive energy to go on to the next step, right? And even as babies, it's all been a complete process of machine learning. You tell a baby it's good, you give the baby a chocolate. It'll do more of that. Or if a baby does something wrong, you tell don't do it, it won't do it, right? That is essentially what machine learning is. So I've always been fascinated with data and numbers, but not academic mathematics, right? So I always found numbers and numbers hidden inside geometry is very interesting, and I always wanted to express that. And the more I realized is that data is basically knowledge, right? The more knowledge you have, the better you can design, right? So why are we not doing that in terms of, especially in 2020, right? We need to take in as much data as possible. Data is going to be the new currency. That's what I strongly believe in this new decade. That why are people, people who are harvesting data? There is some reason behind it, right? That is the one thing which is going to be stable throughout one person's life, right? So why not apply that same concept to buildings? So the more information we have about a particular design requirement, about a particular design, way to design, whatever it is, any single data point regarding a particular project becomes very important at the end of the day. So we use and try to harvest as much data as possible. For example, we did the interiors in terms of like a Jali, in terms of an interiors project. So there we basically took Facebook data, right? So how did the companies, it's a social media based company. So how do you harvest Facebook data? How they progress in terms of the number of likes, the number of impressions, and use those numbers to ultimately create the size of the openings for the Jali entrance. So we primarily work in parametric design and computational design, and we think of it as coding into buildings, right? So we coded numbers into it, and the reason being, whenever the client is brought into the building, right, that can be a conversation starter by itself. So what they see would be the actual progress which they made in their Facebook page, but hidden in terms of geometry. So I think that way we love data, and we are major data parasites. We feed on data, and it has proven really useful to us as well. And what was the other question?
Like the same thing, what are your future plans for the
So yeah, voice texture. So that is basically when I started off during my internship. My internship was at Sujit Nair Design Group, and we were just having lunch one day, and at that point of time, I realized why not fuse beatboxing and architecture, because till that date, it had always been a separate venture. Beatboxing, I do it at events, I don't talk about architecture, and architecture is a separate thing, right? So why not design buildings or forms, 3D forms, using the voice? What if instead of writing, instead of this hand movement, the voice was the stimulus? So we load up a basic geometry in the 3D space, and we use sound data. What I mean by that is basically amplitude, frequency, all those data points, and we affect a particular building mass. So again, right now we are at the level of a heartbeat. That's it. That's the extent which we've been able to reach up to, and we are actively looking for researchers and collaborators who would want to take this up and build it with us. The reason why I'm expressing this idea also is because I secretly want to find people who want to collaborate on this. I'm a big believer in Elon Musk. Right now, the boat is sinking, and we need as many hands as possible to save the sinking ship, right? So that's why if anyone is interested, you can jump on board as well, and we can take up the research project. In the future, how this can be applied is basically as and when you're talking to the client, all the setback parameters can be applied, and the building will start reacting within these parameters. So completely with the guidelines, and you get a completely new form. That is what we are trying to do with voice texture. It's a very primitive research project, but it could lead into something like, say in another 10, 15 years, that could be a new way of designing itself. So students could be designing using the voice, using hand movements. The stimulus doesn't matter. So it could be also hand movements and
Did this
gestures.
process start when you were at one of the workshops, and then you had this thought process that you would?
No, it
have
was
a
literally
voice
when we
setting?
were having lunch. So I have an eidetic memory. I remember what happened where. So right after lunch, just as I was washing my hands, I got this idea. So right away, I went up to Sujit sir and I asked, "Can we do something like this?" And he was gracious enough to tell, do it, try something different. And since that day, I think this is a 4 years based
Has
research
this come
project.
into execution?
No. We are still
So-
very far away from that. So right now it's a heartbeat. So if I beatbox, it will react inside the 3D space. So we can control it using the human voice. But to actually input the parameters, that's a lifelong process. So that's why we need research.
So what is the
researchers to cut short
approximate
the time.
time do you think that it is going to take for you to like?
In
Now
another
that
5
the
years.
thought that you had has taken 4 years, yeah, and
Yeah.
for it to get into the prototype and it start and implementation.
Prototyping is already there. So
the prototype is
we
already
already
there.
3D printed the models as well. So we've got these basic sculptures. Again, right now it's sculptures because it's so vast and you can't control it right now. But at some point of time, say I've kept a timeline of another 5 years till we can input that to buildings. And in 10 years, it will be a regular based, hopefully we can include that in the curriculum as well. Yeah, so something like that.
It's really interesting. Thank you. So I have a question for Aparna. So what is your design workflow at Zaita? And how do you address your client's ideas and requirements? And how do you convince a client if you have contrasting ideas with the client?
The basic design workflow, I would section it into 4 steps. First is discover, where our BD team goes out and finds projects, discovers projects for which we start pitching for. So once we get a pitch, we define the problems, the solution. Under definition comes, that is where research comes in, right? We research we research about the company, its vision, its culture, which we try to ideate into the project by way of concepts. And then once we find a concept, once we find something that could help us in space planning, in a strategy, in a workplace strategy, we do a thermal analysis of the building. That is something that we do, which helps us with segregating the spaces according to heat analysis, right? So, for example, if there in a particular zone there is a need for a meeting room and the heat is very high over there, we suggest to the client that let's not keep it there. You know, there are contrasting, and that is a kind of a contrasting idea, because the client may want it specifically positioned over there. But once we do the thermal analysis, if we find out that the heat load is very high there, we do this analysis so that we can help them understand why the position over there is not right, because the HVAC load becomes more, and then so it becomes an additional cost for the client. So that's where problems and solutions are always ideated at the definition stage. Then we go ahead with renders, walkthroughs. We give them the ideas. We give them ideas in terms of space planning, in terms of design. And then then we develop. And then once that is approved, once the client has found satisfactory, space planning is done right and everything, then we go ahead with, and once that is confirmed, we go ahead with the development of the project, obviously, which involves drawings, which involves the MEP, the PMs, everyone converges to, given their ideas about costing, everything converges at that point. And then we deliver the project. And then what the one thing that we do after delivery is also measuring. So we have something that we do post-occupancy evaluation also.
So I wanted to ask you, do you think the client is always right?
I can put it this way, the client is special. So we try to accommodate his or her ideas as much as possible. So what we do at Zyta is we always give 2 options. So one option is where we accommodate the client's needs as much as possible, though it might not be practical, it might be more an aesthetic sense of however it wants. And the second option, we put in our design inputs with a little of the ideas that the client already has. And then we present it. We present it according to, the budget is a big thing, and then space planning is a huge factor. So at the end of anything, the client's needs are paramount. The nucleus of any project is the client's needs, the client that we deliver to the client as much as possible. So I would say he's special. We give him a special position, obviously.
Like the client balancing is very important.
We balance the vision with our ideas and his ideas through design and through the purpose of design. So we try to accommodate it by keeping in track with the client's vision and culture. So which has to be paramount when designing anything, right? At the end, it's the employee, it's the end user that has to benefit from any kind of design. So that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have a question for Subhashri ma'am. What makes you get out of bed every day and give you your best to the industry, to the creative industry?
See, it's basically the thirst to see, the thirst to create, and every day is a learning for us. We meet new clients, new juniors, new contractors. So it's just that. I mean, we design and build, basically. So when we take up a project, like what she mentioned, like the whole process goes through, and when it hits the site, and every day is pretty hectic, and the day it evolves, the high it creates, that's what we work for. It's just the high. That's it. Yeah.
Thank you. So, Abhishek, I have a question for you. Finally, what are your expectations in this upcoming decade? What changes in your everyday life you can expect, and how will the design industry be affected in this decade?
So, firstly, automation. Yesterday, even I remember this question. Even yesterday at Garden City College, there was a similar question. What is going to be happening in the new decade between 2020 to 2030? First thing is your touch is going to move into the voice. That is going to be a major development. Alexa is going to be your best friend in another, I think it already is, but it will be your best friend within another 2 years maximum, right? Alexa is going to be like the secret Google God who's going to help you out with everything. Kids nowadays are already getting their answers from Alexa. If a kid, right, if I had to solve what is 2 plus 3 as a kid, I would have to learn it, right? Today's kid is basically asking, what is 2 plus 3? Alexa, what is 2 plus 3? And it will tell 5, and he just writes it down. He or she just writes it down, right? So that is one. And one more thing is basically augmented reality. We are betting majorly into augmented reality, right? So interactive AR and visualization of data, or however you want to visualize it, maybe in another 10 years, this award ceremony, you could be sitting right home. How many of you traveled outside of Bangalore to come here? Just raise your hand up. Right? Oh, wow. So you could be sitting in your own place, just wear the headset, and you could get the award delivered to you.
Could you please raise your hands once again?
That's a lot.
Just so now you can see.
Right? So
that's
it'll
like
cut down the travel
75%.
time, and so much of cost will be cut down as well. So you would be sitting at home wearing the headset. I would be sitting somewhere on the planet, and it'll just be exactly like this, but we'll be sitting in the comfort of our own homes, and the award will be delivered to you, right? And augmented reality, virtual reality, and extended reality. It will change the fabric of how we perceive data. And again, this is a little far off, but that will ultimately become a advertising tool as well. Your entire visual, how many of you have seen the movie Ready Player One? Right? So they're actually betting majorly, yeah, very few people actually. You should watch the movie. By the way, I always encourage, so wherever we conduct workshops, watch a lot of Netflix, watch the important ones which will actually help you grow, right? So your visual aid, that will also be sold to advertisers. That is going to be happening probably after 2030 to 2050. And what we are moving towards, right now there are 3 types of artificial intelligence, right? Artificial narrow intelligence, artificial general intelligence, and then super intelligence. So right now we humans are general intelligent. But the systems we are developing from the phone, they are slightly artificial intelligent, so they are narrow. I can't ask my phone to make a dosa for me, right, whenever I'm hungry. So that is narrow. But we are soon moving towards developing a general system or a bot which can exactly replicate a human. And it is said that the very next second, it hits peak super intelligence. So we can't even recognize the level of artificial intelligence which is already there inherent in everyone's phones as well right now, right? It's all gathering data. Everyone who checked in here, including myself, every single data point is being fed to the overlords above, that is Facebook and all these other companies, and they're using that data to target you again and again, right? So data is going to become the new currency, and there was recently an article saying that data is going to ultimately take over and go to a level which will control you. It will predict what you're going to do, right? In terms of design, you can actually check this site called Finch 3D. It's going to take over the architect's job itself. It's a shocking video if you see it. If you input, or if you as a client input saying, I need to build a house of 70 meters square or 600 square feet, right? It will pre-plan a house and will give you 1 million combinations pre-planned. So what is an architect going to do at that point of time, right? So we, at Dirt Lab, we've experimented with all these, and it's a very scary situation which is going to be there. Again, scary means humans or designers or architects will be meant for much better jobs, right? More creative inputs from our side. The mundane robotic work will be taken over by the bots. So So that is what's going to happen in this decade, especially. At the starting of the decade, all of us had still dumb phones, right? And then we moved to smartphones, right? Again, moving from narrow to artificial at that point of time. So also we can check up this concept of J curves, so which means that we're going to develop exponentially. What we did in the last 10 years, we're going to be doing in the next 1 year or 2 years, right? We're ultimately going to follow so rapidly that it's going to be a very exponential. We can't even imagine what's going to be there by the end of 2030, right? So yeah, it's a scary thing, but it's a beautiful process as well. So the next decade is going to be nice.
Thank you. So I have a question to Aparna. Finally, what are your top trends for the interior design industry, and how will the interior design industry be affected in this upcoming decade? You know, like the same thing. How is it going to be affecting?
I think technology will play a major role, but what would be missing is the human element. So that is essential when it comes to any kind of space designing. Robots can never, I mean, they will never be able to feel as we do. Humane work environments will be the need of the hour, right? So we did this survey among Gen Z individuals, which is the next workforce that will enter the workspace. And they are tech natives. They are born with probably, I could go as far as saying that they are born with a smartphone in their hand, right? And so they have a need for a human element in their workspace. They want to be greeted by someone who's actually there in the flesh. So I feel more than elements, design elements in a space, the principles of space planning, as in agile spaces, flexible spaces, inclusive spaces, has to be essential to any kind of design. We have to design keeping the human element in mind, keeping the culture, the brand and the culture has to be the top parameters while designing. And that will be an ongoing trend, that should be an ongoing trend. As in much technology disrupts our life more and more, we should never forget our culture and our brand and the fact that we are all humans, by the way, and we need to be connected, yes, but we need to be connected as much as emotionally as well. So that, I feel, is what's
going to be missing.
Yeah.
So to Subhashri ma'am, I wanted to ask you, like, now you are an architect and, Rajni ma'am is an interior designer. It's been how many projects that you've done together, and how welcoming are you to the new talents at your, lab, the Uncut Design Lab?
So we are around, we are 10 years old now, and we have completed around nearly 50 to 55 projects. And we totally believe in teamwork, and like we do work with juniors and freshers and lot of other stream people as well. So I believe that only with everybody around, something can be created. So we are very welcoming to newer ideas, and we learn every day from everything we see and from everybody we meet.
So
the
at
teamwork,
Uncut, so is there a specific design when the interiors are being planned? Is there a specific design which has been, that you have it, that you say like it is the Uncut Design style?
See, our name speaks for it. We are uncut. We are pretty raw, and we create the ideas from our clients are our superheroes. So we create our ideas from them. They are our inspiration, and we take through the whole thing with them, and they see it through us, basically. So it's like that. So we don't have a set language, and we don't constrain ourselves to a boundary. So we keep exploring with the client, and we always believe in the change, and what is today, we get to do that. And also the inputs from the client are pretty important for us. So we work around with that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was indeed a pleasure to have all of you, the young talent. Like, Architect Vasant Bhatt sir said, I wanted the young talent to be here on stage. Thank you so very much for being here with us. And I have a last question, Dr. Anand, so I'll finish it up with this. So as architects and interior designers, I think sometimes while we are learning and, we have grown eventually as a firm or as an individual for whatever positions we take, yeah? So there are people who cannot really afford things. Like there was a survey that we were doing from my college, yeah, from all of these slum people. I shouldn't be mentioning it that way, but yeah, people who cannot afford it. Now it's going to be summer. To all of you, I have this question. It's going to be the summertime. There are people who actually just live with those, the huts and the street, the sheets. So how is it going to? How can we give them an idea? What can we do, to let them not have this heat resistant for the summer?
So you're asking about the
How can we give them the roof which that can give that heat resistant? They can they can resist the heat.
so maybe some thatch and
Yeah.
yeah.
There's always.
So do you think that we should sometimes to collaborate all of the architects and interior designers join hands and do some projects like that also, because also that hardly
Anytime,
involves
I think collaboration is always necessary.
Yeah, because
everyone should
there's
come
the
together.
commercials involved in
Yes.
it, and so people out there also can be a little helped. So what's your one
No,
word to
for
it?
me, freelancing is the future ultimately. So collaboration and freelancing is definitely going to be the future. There is no such thing as it can't be done. There is some person out there who can do it. It's just that finding the right person.
Someone
Again,
to take an
that can be
initiative and
achieved.
join hands.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just about picking the right people and working with the right people. For me, that has been proven very useful, right? I love working with people. That's why at Dirt Lab, there are no, the concept of, I've been discussing with Dr. Anand as well. We don't believe in the concept of employees and that, right? I believe in strictly collaborators. So there is no such concept of monthly pay. You get as per whatever project is there, you directly take a bigger cut. For me, the revenue is not that much of a bigger motivator. Again, at the end of the day, I have to be satisfied creatively. So that, is very helpful.
Also help people who can, not
So,
afford it by themselves.
Yeah, so I want to grow as a thing. It goes back to Elon Musk's theory that we are really on a sinking boat, right? Work with as many people and solve the problem, right? There's no point in, if you have some information, it just shouldn't be just with you for the rest of your life. So that was a very old concept. So now share your information as much as possible, right? Yeah.
Without a fear, of course. That
Yeah,
Yes.
without the
collaboration,
fear.
Fear
Yes.
is there always. Yeah, especially in India.
Thank you so very much. And on that note, we are